All right, and here is Prime One's 1/3 scale Hush Poison Ivy. And as I'm sure you can tell, her presence in the room is just insane. She's huge, and just the entire statue with the base and everything just takes up so much space. It feels bigger even than Prime 1 Superman, even though I'm sure Prime 1 Superman is bigger. I unfortunately don't have them out right now to compare. But she's just huge, just absolutely insanely big. I'm just going to do a look around, show her from all angles, and then I'll just touch on a few pieces that or bits of the statue that stand out to me. Apologize if it's a little bit hard to see back here. The sun's coming in from the background. Tried to keep that as steady as possible. I hope it's not too bouncy. So here's the EX piece, and it's cute. I like the reference to the Hush comic that it comes from. One of my favorite Batman stories of all time, and Jim Lee is my favorite comic book artist of all time. So it's a nice mix of an amazing story, amazing artist. If you've never read Hush, I highly suggest that you do that. So first of all, the EX is nice. Like I said, really well done. The cat's very cute. He looks a little bit washed out in the video here, but in person he's great. The suitcase was surprisingly heavy, actually. Now my suitcase, I'm not sure if you can see, but it kind of leans in a weird way. I'm not sure if that's intentional. I didn't notice that in other reviews or pictures, or maybe that's just something that's a little bit of an anomaly on my statue. It doesn't bother me. It's just interesting to note. So starting at the base here, the base, like the very bottom bit here, I don't think that's painted all that well. I'm not sure. I guess it's supposed to be concrete, but it just doesn't look like concrete to me. I'm not sure what those. I guess they add the brown in there because it's supposed to be sort of dirt from the organic pieces of her plants, but I don't think that base looks very good. That steel or bar in there looks okay. It's not too bad. None of this bottom bit of the base I think is mind-blowing. It's all good. See, this is sort of my general sentiment about the statue in general. If you look at the individual parts, honestly, aside from some things like the man-eating flowers here, which are done really, really well, the individual parts are not the best that I've seen Prime 1 do. They're still great. Prime 1 always kind of has a certain bar of quality that they maintain, but individual parts are not the best. Even if you look at the moss, I guess that's what's supposed to be, or like the green elements of this, it's not defined. It's not clear what it's supposed to be. Is that just green bits of the plant? Is that moss growing on the plant? I'm not sure. But the point is that this statue is far more than the individual sum of its parts. It shines in its presence and all the bits put together. So again, the flowers, the man-eating flowers, are just amazing. And as a whole, I mean, as you can see when you look at the statue, your eye is drawn to a few things. Her, obviously, she pops, her head surrounded in that sort of in that great red hair, and then boom, 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 your eye goes to all the different flowers, and it just has a really nice balance to it. Artistically, it's just really pleasing to the eye. And in overall presence and just sort of artistic layout, this statue really, really shines. I think anybody who has this in their collection, people will gravitate directly towards it just because of that. But again, once you start getting a little bit closer, some of the details are just not as nice as they could be. I mean, it's tough to do wood well. I get it. So maybe I have unrealistic expectations, but where it looks good is where it looks a little bit wet. But the dry wood just doesn't look as much like wood as I would have liked. Again, step back a couple feet and it all looks phenomenal, but look up close. Again, other than these bits here, these man-eating plants are awesome. Look at the detail. But yeah, look up close, and some of the elements, especially in the base, just don't work. It's not that they don't work; they just could have been better, in my opinion. As you can see, there's a big seam line here. I don't love that, but again, all these things, like nobody who isn't looking for them would notice any of this stuff. If I brought a friend over here who's not into statues and they just saw this, they wouldn't notice any of these things. I absolutely guarantee it. They would just see the statue and they would be blown away by it. So now as we look at her, she's certainly better. It's not really comparing apples to apples because she's obviously flesh and organic. So you can't compare that to something like trying to pull off a tree bark in a statue. But as you can see, these vines look okay. Kind of similar to what Superman has on his base. But once again, not really awesome if you look up close at them, in my opinion. Painted well, but just like concept-wise, not the best. But again, it's the overall presence of the statue. As soon as you step back and look at it, it all fits, it all works. So it all depends on your taste, I suppose. But nice texture in the bodysuit here. These leaves up here look a little bit better. There's some overlapping leaves there that just sort of make it look a little bit more natural. I guess that's what it is that bugs me, is this stuff here just looks a little bit unnatural. It looks like it's just pasted onto the legs, which I suppose it is. But if you're trying to go for a look where it's true plant material or plants creeping up her legs and around her, it's not necessarily nailing that. The portrait is another spot where, unfortunately, the portrait was what I was most looking forward to on this statue. When I saw it in pictures, I was just blown away. I thought it was going to be my favorite portrait out of any of the statues that I have. She just looks stunningly beautiful, and she still looks good, but again, maybe my expectations were just too high with this piece. But if you look at her eyes, they're just not, they look a tiny bit off, just a tiny bit. That one eye looks like it's looking just a slight different direction. One's a little bit higher than the other. And I know that's, in actual people, that is the case. Nothing's ever completely symmetrical, but I would expect on a statue based on a comic book that you would see more symmetry. But anyways, nitpicking. I like the blush cheeks she has a little bit that you see through the green. The tone of the skin is great. It has a really nice green with just hints of sort of pinks and flesh tones behind it, which is really cool. Yeah, the body is done well. The hair is great too. Nice sculpt on it. Not too much paint that you don't actually see all the individual hairs in there, so that's nice. So I won't go on too long because I know a lot of other reviewers have done this piece already. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on it. And my 2 cents is essentially what I've been saying this entire time. If you look too closely at some of the elements of the statue, especially in the base, the lower base, you might be discouraged. It's just not quite the fit and finish that I would expect from Prime 1. That said, I think this is the case with most Prime 1 statues, is that they're not concentrating on the base as much as the statue. And sometimes I think maybe the lack of detail in parts of the base, I know this is the case in the Arkham line, is to accentuate the characters themselves. They always pop from sort of a gray base. Now her base is certainly more intricate, and I do love the overall look of it from far away. I think first impression and just general impression wise, this is an absolutely stunning piece that will attract the attention of anybody who comes to your place and sees your collection. But yeah, just some criticisms of the details when you get in close in some of these bits.